but it's fine.
We had some technical issues.
Yes.
We're using a different setup this time,
Yeah.
so we're a little closer.
Yes.
Yes, but that's fine,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine. You can really see the skin problems I had this week.
Oh no.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I did a little facial.
Nice.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Welcome to week 1 of the Sock Knit Along.
Yes. This has been a request for quite some time, so we're really
Yeah.
excited to do this. We're kind of this time going to riff on a concept more than do an actual pattern specifically. So heads up.
Yeah, it's kind of like, because sock knitting is such a choose your own adventure kind of a project, there's so many ways you can knit socks. So, and you'll kind of find the way that you like to do them.
Absolutely.
It's like, I think I probably tried a few different ones before I kind of settled on the sock that I always do now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I told this to my mother, and I don't think it landed well. I think she was like, no, that's not what I want to hear right now. But I think a really good mindset to approach this adventure is going to be that every sock you knit is practice for your next sock. Most people, when you start knitting socks, admittedly there are some who knit one sock and they never go back again. But I think most people knit one on a journey to knit a whole drawer full of socks. So every pair of socks that you knit is going to give you more information about what fits your foot, what kind of styles or techniques you like to use. They're more fun for you, and you'll slowly refine towards your basic sock. Might take a little while, but that's okay. You'll just have some great socks along the road.
Exactly. And you can ask your friends. You can see what works for them and try different techniques.
Hi, Francine. Thanks for joining us. Okay, but so we are doing a riff, we're just going to talk about all the sock things.
Yep.
We do have 2 free patterns available if anybody needs a pattern to follow along on the website, and I think they're also available through Ravelry for free.
Yes, they are. So I think the was it the Irish chain that has an errata?
Yeah, they might.
So I
need
to add the errata.
Yes.
But,
so there is a slight errata about the heel, but you'll be fine up to there. And we'll be talking about the heel next week for this particular pattern, so don't worry about it. So we've got the quilt block socks and the Irish chain socks. And these are both available for free on the Fabrications website or through Ravelry. And so we aren't going to be doing a deep dive into the color work portion of this. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to put them in the chat at any point during the next couple of weeks, and we're more than happy to help answer them. But if you'd like some tips and tricks on how to knit color work, we recommend you go back to the knit along that we did just in this past winter, the Fair Enough Cowl.
Yeah, so we did a whole color work specific.
Yeah, to talk about techniques and
knit
catching
along.
floats and stuff.
Yeah.
But we're going to be mostly focused on all the many considerations that go into how to knit a sock.
Yeah.
So before we dive into yarn and needle considerations, do we want to talk about all the different kinds of variations we're going to do?
All the different kinds that we're going to do?
That we'll be talking
or
about,
all
yes.
the different types that there are?
Oh God, no, there's way too many. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about over the next few weeks.
Yeah, so the two main ones that we're going to talk about, well, like there's a flow chart. There's like,
we need a
Right.
workflow. This is my jam. I'm a corporate girly now. I can make a flow chart.
Okay, so there's toe up or top down. Those are your 2 main groups. There are others. There are some there's. Should I even get into what those are? There's a bunch of other ones, but the basic ones are toe up, top down.
Yep.
Then you have different types of heels. So you've got the short row heel. This is my short row heel that I always do. And Emily is it heel flap and gusset?
It is a heel flap and gusset.
And there's even variations within those.
Yes.
Right?
Oh gosh, yeah. There's we'll talk about it on heel night, but there are definitely variations within. So but those again are two of the most, I think, common techniques for doing heels. And then there's also different kinds of needles that you can use when you're knitting socks, which are like your little small circumference in the round. So you've got shorty needles, which are the little like 9 or 10-inch circulars.
I've got my magic loop.
Dun, 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 dun.
This is my preferred way to knit my socks. So I've got like an extra long needle here.
And then I prefer to knit my socks on double pointed needles. So we're going to talk about all three methods. And then next week, because there's a lot to cover this evening, but next week we'll talk about how you might do 2 at a time on Magic Loop. So if you get your socks started this week, maybe you could move them both onto the same needle next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Francine says, I can knit color work on large items, not on socks or mitts. I need ideas. So I also, I like color work on larger needles. I knit some mittens on on a small gauge, and I found it very tiring.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
my number one tip would be to go up a needle size, which I did. I knit these both, and I went up a needle size before I hit. So I think I knit these on 2.5, and then I went up to a 2.75 probably, and then back
Yeah,
down to
because
2.5.
the color work is not going to stretch the same
Exactly.
way
Yeah.
that you want a sock to stretch on your leg. So if you do decide to dive into that, that would be a consideration. I think that's mentioned in the pattern too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't use the shorties very often because it kind of is like knitting like with the queen at tea. Kind of have to have your pointies out.
Yeah.
But if you have the kind that are interchangeable, you can make a slightly longer one. So it'll sort of force your knitting outwards, give you a bit more space that way. And then you also don't have to worry about pinching and the color work where the ladders
Okay.
might occur along the edges for Magic Loop, or where your 3 needles or 4 needles meet
Okay.
if you're doing double pointed. But I would also just give it a shot. I also find
Yeah.
that my gauge does something a bit weird. Sometimes I get a little loose
With color work?
with color work at this gauge. Not always with superwash, but with non-superwash, I definitely do.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I tried flexi flips
Oh,
with
yes.
with the color work mittens that I did, thinking it might help a bit. And it does give you a little bit more. It's not as tight, I guess,
Yeah.
because it gives you more of a curve to work with.
Yeah.
Because I find these short needles
Yes.
are very small for the way that I
Yes.
hold my yarn and I do my knitting. I find this very
Oh, yes.
small.
I usually only bust them out if I'm knitting on a plane, on a bus, or on a porch, because I don't want to lose my DPNs
Oh, yeah.
that way. But I do prefer to knit on DPNs. And if anyone's wondering what the heck a flexi flip is, they're kind of like DPNs, except they have a little tiny short cable in the middle so that you can.
Yeah,
Move
it's about this long. It's not that short. It's,
Oh, okay.
It's like
A middling cable in the middle. Okay, let's
Okay.
go get them. Okay, while she goes to find them, yes, Francine, the pattern is either the quilt block socks or the Irish chain socks, and we'll put a link in the description afterwards. And here is a flexi flip, so you can see it's kind of like a DPN except you can
So
flexi.
we don't sell these in the store yet, but these are a pretty cool
Yeah.
little invention, and they're by Addie.
I think so.
Yeah, I think they're Addie's.
We're putting the real 7 p.m. To work at my
Yeah,
brain.
yeah, it says Addie on it.
And then I think the last thing when we talk about needle types would be using 2 circulars instead of doing Magic Loop. So when Caitlin is going to talk about Magic Loop, you could also do the same thing. Instead of with 1 circular, you just substitute 2 shorter circulars, one on either side. So there's many different ways that you can try, and I recommend you try them all.
Yes.
So that you can vehemently dislike them in knitting circles from then on. Whichever ones don't work for you. But you don't know. I mean, I've definitely heard a lot of people who start with one and try another go, oh my God, my life has changed.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth it giving a shot to a bunch of different options.
And what are some reasons that
Yeah.
you might choose one heel over the other?
Okay. Oh,
Like, I know
great
we're getting
question.
into heels, but
Yes.
if somebody is wanting to knit a short row heel versus a heel flap and
Yeah.
gusset, they will need to make that decision
Early-ish.
sooner
Yes.
rather than later.
So thinking about heel flaps and gussets. So I like to do contrast heels and toes on my socks and cuffs. And you can see that the heel is a bit of a rectangle as opposed to a perfect square. So if you are very aesthetically minded, you may find this ugly. And therefore that might be why you try short row heels. That is why I tried short row heels for the first time. I was like, not so pretty. Short
That's
row heels
cute.
are prettier, in my opinion. But I have pretty narrow heels and pretty wide feet, and
Okay.
I find that the short row heel does not fit my foot shape
Right.
as well and as tightly as a heel flap and
Yeah.
gusset.
And I prefer the short row heel, and I think it's just because I don't like I like being able to knit for a long time without having to think about the heel.
Yes,
That's purely the reason.
that is a very fair point.
There's less keeping track for me.
Yeah, because you don't have to do what these ones do, which is figure out a way to shrink all of the stitches that are here back into like a regular number of foot stitches. We'll talk about that next week 3. And then one last reason why you might choose a short row over a heel flap and gusset, if you are using the shorties, it's gonna be hella hard to do a heel flap and gusset on a shorty. Just
Okay.
saying. So you would want to do a short row heel instead, or shift over to double pointed needles or magic loop, just some other method,
Just for the heel.
just for the heel. And then once you go your gusset again, you can go back onto your shorties. Same thing with the toes on the shorties. You're going to have to switch to a different method to do your toes. So just flagging that. We'll talk about it again down the line. Okay, let's very briefly talk about yarn.
Yes. Yes. So the yarn, for choosing your yarn, basically you want to pick something, for this pattern anyway, it's a fingering weight yarn.
Yep.
What I prefer for socks is machine washable. It helps prevent them from felting. Not just they're not just easier to wash, but
Yeah.
it prevents felting because your feet sweat and rub together
And are warm.
and are warm. And you want to make sure that you pick something that has some nylon content in it or silk.
Yep, silk is often used as an alternative. Your mileage may vary. If you've never knit socks for yourself before, or you've never worn hand knit socks, everybody wears through their socks in different spots.
Yeah.
So I wear through my toes. Lots of people wear balls of feet or heels. So if you find that to be a trend, go towards nylon over silk and go for a higher percentage. So 20 or 25% nylon instead of say 10 or 15.
Yeah, and the sock yarns that we have in the store right now are unique. That's a self-striping sock yarn. We've got Sweet Georgia.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tough. It's called Tough Love sock.
It's
So
very
we've got
pretty. I've used it in socks before.
yeah. So we've got some solid colors, and then we also have some gradient kit from Sweet Georgia. We also have perennial, and then
That's really soft. I think it's got some alpaca in it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
alpaca and merino.
Oh gosh,
It's
it's a really soft yarn.
gorgeous.
And there's minis.
Yes.
So if you would want to join me in doing a contrast cuff heel and toe, either the Party of 5 kits from Sweet Georgia or the minis from Perennial would be a grand old
Yeah.
choice.
I'm just trying to jog my memory. The other one that we have is the Malabrigo Ultimate Sock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also beautiful colors.
Yeah, they've got beautiful, like,
Yeah.
superwash yarn tends to absorb dyes really, really brightly. So that's why you get a lot of really brightly colored sock yarns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I would recommend the other thing I wanted to remember to talk about when talking about socks was the number of plies in your
Oh,
yarn.
yes, yes.
So there are a lot of fingering weight, or there is at least one that comes to mind, fingering weight single ply yarns in the shop. And that would be, I think, the Madeline Tosh Light. If you're going to use anything that's a single ply, even if it's got some nylon in it, just be aware that the single ply is not as strong and resistant to pilling or possible abrasion. And so it may wear faster for some people. So I would recommend a plied yarn.
Yeah.
If you can swing it, or knit a single plied yarn, knit socks out of mohair or cotton or just pure alpaca if you want to. Those are going to be bed socks or couch socks.
Yeah.
Like the kind that you take lovely photos and post on Instagram, but you're not going to wear them hiking because they are not going to withstand a good strong walk in a boot.
Oh my God. I'm like those mohair a mohair sock makes me think of those ads that you see on like Instagram where it's like, it looks like a sock that's made out of like gauze.
Yes.
Have you seen those?
Yes.
It's like a transparent sock.
Yeah. There's a market for it. I like my socks to be chunky and full of fiber. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Okay. So we're cognizant of the fact that we have another knit along starting at
Yes.
sorry, not knit along. We have a sew along starting at 8. So we can't yap forever. So the last thing I wanted to do before we dive into techniques is I wanted to mention the sock percentage system, which is kind of going to drive the techniques and the planning that we're going to do. So as a concept, the sock percentage system is used to ensure that you have the right ratio of number of stitches to your heel flap or your heel cup and your toe. So if we think about the number that you cast on as being 100% of your stitches, you're going to work your heel over 50% of your stitches, and you're going to work your toe. You're going to start with 100%, you're going to shrink down to 50%, and you'll have 25% on either side. This will make sense when we get to it and we start talking about numbers, but I just wanted to put it out there that it's a very convenient way to think about making a sock. Same thing with toe up, same idea. Start with 25% on either side, go up to 100%, do your 50% heel, and then back to 100%.
Yeah.
It's really great if you want to take the concept of knitting a sock and apply it to people with different sizes of feet. So if you change your cast on number, then you change all the percentages that go with it, and it'll still be proportionally sock-like and a good baseline at least that you can then refine if someone has like a really high instep or something like that.
And there are a lot of, that's a really good way that I haven't heard of, but I've also heard of lots of different ways, like the fish lips kiss heel. They have it's a long pattern, but
the first 28 pages are about how to measure a foot, and then the last 2 pages are the pattern.
So it costs $1 or $2 or something. So there are many different sources of where you can learn this kind of information and sort of figure out what kind of makes sense to you. I also had somebody, I think she was a knitting teacher, she explained this to me to make sure that I would get a sock that fit. I would start knitting the sock, I would measure my stitch count, like stitches per inch, and then I would figure out what the gauge of my fabric was, and then there was a couple of different calculations, and that gave me the number of stitches that I would need to increase to.
Okay, so starting with your toe and then using that initial toe to build out the rest of the sock with your gauge.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so because you want your socks to fit somewhat tight. Most people want their socks to have a negative ease, which means it's you stretch it to put it on, and that's what's going to help hold your socks up. If you think about how that works. So yeah,
cool. Okay, questions? Just pop them in the chat. So the way that this is going to work is that because it's kind of silly to do we'll do toe up this week and next week and top down the week after the last week. We're going to be doing them simultaneously. So if you want to do really wild and crazy, you could wind your yarn into 50-gram balls and do one of each direction. I probably wouldn't recommend that because they won't fit well together.
Oh my God.
I recommend knitting your pair in the same direction. If
Yes.
you've got a bunch of needles and a bunch of yarn, you could do 2 different pairs
Yeah.
if you wanted to, but maybe not the same pair.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the different ways of doing things, and then you can kind of like suss out whether that looks like something you want to, which one looks like something you want to try.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Caitlin will be helming our wonderful toe up method, and I will be doing our top down because I refuse to learn another way. No, I'm kidding. I can do it if I need to. But,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, and the other thing was that we're going to try to do some more standalone videos.
Yeah.
Because it just kind of it's easier to demonstrate, rather than moving the camera down. So this week I have a video up to do. It's already published, and the video is one video showing toe up cast on and top down cast on. So there's 2 cast ons there, so you can watch that video after you watch this and kind of get a sense of how that works.
All right. So would you like to then talk about all of the considerations for your section, and then I'll go.
Yeah, so I knit my socks toe up. With the exception of this one, I thought I would try a different thing. I know, right? So I like to knit my socks toe up because I get to try them on more easily, because the foot is sort of the real sticker that you want it to fit right. So when I started, I thought I want to make sure it fits. I want to try it on as I go. And I use a cast on called Judy's Magic Cast On. There's a couple. There's another one called the Turkish Cast On.
Before, I think.
It's very similar, but just a slightly different method. And that is where you cast on this little bottom. This is the toe here. You cast on this little section right here, and then you build out from there. So it'll make more sense when you see that video.
So you're going to cast on, and then you're going to be increasing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you cast on here, and it's like a 2-sided kind of a cast on.
Okay.
Yeah.
One on either needle.
Yeah.
Okay.
One on either needle. And then as you start to knit in the round and you're doing increases on either side, so I've got increases on the top and bottom on the right foot on the right side, and the top and bottom on the left side, and that is what slowly starts to shape this toe. So you go larger and larger and larger until you finish the toe, and then you are going to start knitting in the round to knit your foot. And I'll just show you what the increases look like from the side when you fold the side of the sock.
You get the little panel.
Yeah, it's like a little, so on either side of that, you've got increases. I use a knit front and back for my increases, but you can use make ones.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. I would, if you're going to do a make one, I would do it and then knit the last stitch, like do it before the last stitch.
Yeah.
So it's not right at the edge of the needle.
Yeah.
But
So your increases, I've experimented with this a little bit. I have done increases. Normally what I do is I increase every other row. Every other row is an increase row, and then the row in between that is just straight knitting.
okay.
And what was I going to say? I've also tried doing more of a quick.
Oh, so like boom, 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 boom.
I've tried doing all of the increase rows without a plain knitting row in between, and I got kind of a rounder toe
Okay. Yeah.
rather than this. I've heard it called like a shovel kind of a toe, and that's one way you can do it, and it still fits.
Yeah.
It fits great. It just looks a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the lovely thing about this because I would be reticent to do that coming top down because if you don't knit enough fabric, your toe is going to be poking out.
Right.
But because you're going to start with the toe and you can knit the whole foot to adjust afterwards,
Exactly.
you go for it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after I knit the toe, then I continue to knit my sock straight. I don't do any increases or or anything like that yet. And then when I get to the length that I've measured my foot to, so I usually knit until my whole piece measures 8 inches.
For your foot. Okay.
Yeah, because your heel is going to create 2 inches,
Okay.
right? So whatever your foot length is, subtract 2 inches from that, and that's when you're gonna stop and do your heel.
Presumably your foot length is from, I mean, I know it's kind of obvious, but from the tip of your tippy toe to the back of your heel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the Fish Lips Kiss Heel explains all of this.
Okay. Caitlin is a big Fish Lips Kiss Heel stand, but it's proprietary, so we can't like demo it because it is a paid pattern.
Exactly.
But she very much.
It's a very funny pattern. I really love the pattern, but I always just tell people like it's very long. There's a lot of reading.
Just
skip a lot of information.
Skip to the end.
But it is helpful, right?
Yeah.
She shows you how to measure your foot and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We have, so Nicole, I'm so glad that you're going to enjoy the videos. I think it's going to land better than our patented flip the camera down, shuffle, 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 me snorting in the camera.
Oh my God.
if we're lucky, it'll just be a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, if we had better tech, if my computer was a newer computer, we could do like a 2-camera thing.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, Natalie says toe up gives great options to customize your toe foot shape. Yeah, so Emily has also done anatomical socks.
Oh God, yes, I have. I actually interrupted an evening's discussion with Caitlin and a few others, and just out of the blue went, "I'm wearing anatomical toes."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can play around with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I'll bring one in on toe week.
You should. Toe week.
My toe week. This is your toe week.
Yeah. So basically I do my heel, and I use the Fish Lips Kiss heel is essentially a German short row variant. Like it's very similar to a short row heel. And then when I'm done that, I knit the cuff of my sock, and then I knit usually 1.5 inches of ribbing. And I've actually perfected this sock pattern. So
I was gonna mention this.
I like my socks to be folded in half exactly.
It's funny. I was like, are we gonna? Maybe I'll mention that. I don't know. Maybe Caitlin will think it's weird. Nope, Caitlin thinks it's normal.
Yeah, it's just it's so that I can just say, well, this is how far I have left to knit, and then it's done, and then I know it fits, and then that's it.
Yeah, aesthetically pleasing. So next week you'll be talking about the short row heel and heel considerations. So you can knit as much as you want in the intervening week, but if you want to, you can go as far as 2 inches short of your foot length.
Yes.
If you're doing the toe up. All right.
Yeah, I think that was all I needed to cover, right?
Yeah.
Cast on increases and the magic loop, which we can show you at the end.
Yeah.
We'll do a little demo at the end of what that is.
Okay. Now let me wax poetic about the alternative. So I knit top down as the way I learned how to knit the socks, and I'm too lazy to figure out how to do the heel flap and gusset from the toe up. I have done the alternative, the toe up method. I've used it particularly when I have like 50 grams or 60 grams of it self-striping and I want to get the whole amount of it.
Yeah.
Then what I'll do is I'll do a contrast heel and toe and do it from the toe up so that I continually knit until I get really run out of yarn. It's a lot harder to kind of time it in the other direction. But I stand a good top down. So Caitlin has demonstrated we basically use a long tail cast on. You need something that's going to have a bit of stretch. If you have particularly wide calves, then you might consider casting on more and having some slight shaping down the way. If you are worried about that, then perhaps this like a surprisingly stretchy cast on might also work
Yep.
for you. But I have fairly like a medium to wide-ish calves, and I use the long tail, and it's fine. I don't knit my socks super long. You can see like this is kind of the longest cuff I usually go for. But yeah, I've been using long tail for literally everything at this point. Like 70, 80 pairs of socks in my drawer. I have a problem. Then I would recommend, as Caitlin said, to do 1.5 inches at least of ribbing, because this is one of the things that's going to hold your sock up. So for me, at my gauge, that I usually just knit 20 rows. It's easy for me to count. It's easy for me to remember for the second sock when I'm knitting the second sock. So I usually do 15 or 20, and now that I don't hate ribbing so much, I usually will do 20. And then you knit stockinette, and you knit your stockinette tube until it is the length that you want it to be, because that is the leg of your sock, and then we start the heel afterwards. Like we said at the beginning of this session, if you're going to do the color work, maybe go up a needle size, and you can place your color work band anywhere along here. So if you want a longer sock, you could add more rows after the ribbing, or you could add more rows after the color work portion, or you could go super crazy wild and do 2 bands. My God. Yeah, so that is also an option for you. And I think one of the things that we've neglected to give anybody anything so far is numbers.
Well,
I mean, it really depends.
it depends.
A lot of patterns will give you a 64 stitch count for a women's sock. And I would say anything in that vicinity is going to be roughly
that
right
is usually that's the standard, but like not everybody has the same body, and that was why I started doing them toe up. So that I could because it depends on your gauge too. So a couple things you could do is you could just try the 64. It might work, unless you have very small feet or very large feet. I would kind of maybe just try the 64 and see how that fits. You can try it on as you go.
That's your 100% number would be 64. If you're knitting, I quite often see like socks for people with larger feet, including men, would be like a 72 or 76.
Yep.
You'll notice that all of these are divisible by 4, and that is because we have 2x2 ribbing incorporated into the cuff. So your final number is going to need to be divisible by 4.
Yeah. And the other point that I was going to add to that was,
Sorry.
no, I was going to say something right when you were done. The other thing was, it'll come back to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the topic of numbers, I knit a 60 stitch sock. Before the pandemic, Before the pandemic, I was knitting a 56 inch, stitch sock.
Yeah.
And then things got really stressful, so I had to go up to a 60 because I was like, and these suckers on my feet.
I knit a 60 stitch sock because 64 I find is too loose, but that has to do with my gauge.
It has to do with your gauge and also your comfort level of how tight you want your socks.
Yeah.
Some people like loose socks.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you want to talk quickly about your heel, and then we'll just do a quick demo because Michelle will is going on it.
Yeah. So so we'll do the legs, then we do our heel flap, which is worked over half of our stitches. We make a nice little rectangle, and then we do a little triangular decrease action. Beautiful. Look at those arches. Until we get back to our 100%, and we knit like the wind until we hit close to where we want to start our toe, and then we do, ironically, very similar shaping. We are going to have almost an identical shape for our toe, except instead of increases, we use decreases, and we also have them lined up along the edge.
Yeah. That
Like
it looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah, I would argue actually that it is only slightly harder for my method, which I'm really not selling it. But the slightly harder part is that you really have to make sure that your toe lines up with where you put your heel, because otherwise your toe will be like this and your foot goes like this and it doesn't like twist halfway. So
Oh,
I have
right.
had to help people rip out
Oh,
a toe,
I see.
an incorrectly placed toe decrease. So we'll talk
Oh,
about that
okay.
again on the
Okay.
last week. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
that's interesting.
It has happened. If it happens to you, you are
Yeah.
not alone. You are in good company.
Well, I mean, the beginning of round stitch marker helps, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for next week, either knit up to 2 inches before the end of your foot
Mhm.
if you're doing toe up, or knit up to however long you want the leg of your sock to be.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do it all, but if you want to,
Yep. Or you can just do the
Yeah.
cast on too. Like this
that's
is
true. Yep. And then we will be back here next week to talk about all things heel. More so than we already did.
Yeah. I feel like there's just so much information, right? Like
The first week is always like info dump.
yeah, info dump. So please just if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
Or if we explain something too quickly, just
Yes.
yeah.
And you can ask in next week's video too. That's
Yeah,
totally fine.
Yep. All right. So I'm basically just going to show
Yes.
what
Caitlin's going to show you what magic loop looks like.
magic loop looks like.
Actually, do you want to show them what DPNs look like too?
Yeah.
Since I've got them here. All right. We have all the methods. Okay. Okay. Do you want me to get my? I don't know. We're pretty good in terms
How's
of
this?
lighting. It's going to offer to do my.
No,
flash.
is this good?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's very good. Let me get my notes out of the way in case I'm embarrassing myself. Oh no,
Okay.
they are very much in frame.
I know it's on a little bit of an angle.
That's all good.
Okay. So this is what a magic loop looks like. So this is on a long needle. I want to say this is a 32.
It looks like a 32.
Yeah, it's a 32.
24s are too short for this.
Yeah, so 32, you've got your...
32 inches, sorry.
Yeah, 32 inches. So you've got your magic, this is why they call it magic loop, because it's got the loop sticking out there. And you have your needles sticking out on the end. And the way that you work this, I'll just do a couple of stitches here. So you're gonna pull this back needle out, and you're gonna basically knit all of the stitches on this row. Let's see how fast I can do that.
It's fine. You're good. We've got
Yeah.
loads of time, Caitlin. We've
Yeah.
got like 20 minutes.
Okay.
We could make these people stay here and watch us knit rows for the next 20 minutes and it would be totally fine.
No.
They might abandon us, but
Oh my god. Yeah, and some people don't like this method because they feel like you always got to pull your cables out, but honestly, I find that to be not that big of a deal. So
Well,
it's such a personal thing.
well, and I've also heard people complain about double pointed needles because like they all come out of the work. And so you could lose a DPN, but
Yeah.
with a magic loop, it's all there, and you're never gonna accidentally leave a piece behind.
Yeah, yeah. And how many, say, you use 5 DPNs?
Oh god, Caitlin. So I traditionally knit on 3 DPNs with 1 extra, but when there's too many stitches, I will then move over to 4 plus 1.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll dig out, like when I'm doing my heel flap and gusset, I'll do like 5 plus 1,
Okay.
which I don't think is a real thing, but I do it anyways.
When I first started, I put my knitting on 2 and then I knit with the 3rd one.
I have had a friend do that too, and
Yeah, with little baby socks.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, she was doing adult socks, and I was like, "Can I offer
Oh.
you another one? That seems like you're making your life hard." She's like, "I think I'm fine." I'm like, "I don't
Oh my
know,
gosh.
man."
Are you sure it wasn't me?
Yes.
Okay. So I've knit this whole row.
Yep.
And then I've got this loop here. So I'm going to turn my work.
Mhm.
And I'm going to do a little switcheroo. I usually do this faster when I'm alone. Okay, so I push them both back in, and then I'm going to pull this back one out again so that we're back at that starting point. And this is why you need a really long needle, because if it was shorter, this this part would be very, very tight, and
Yeah.
it would be stretching out
Yeah.
your stitches here.
It's like theoretically possible, but that's like in an emergency. If you're stuck in a foreign city and there is no
There's no
knitting stores and you're not there long enough to get like a prime
Oh my
delivery
gosh.
to your hotel.
Yeah.
And this way just a little bit, Caitlin.
So yeah, this is essentially what it is, and usually I try to knit the whole row rather than leave it like this, because sometimes
It'll
it get a
lie
little bit
flat.
fiddly. But it, if I have to put it away, I just kind of tuck it away like this.
Beauty.
All right,
Shorties.
shorties. Oh
I'm-
my,
I'm so demanding.
that's fine. Okay. So, like I was saying, these are really short for me.
Yeah.
Just because the way that I hold my needles, I like to kind of use them as a lever,
Yes.
almost.
Yeah.
This might be easier if you're like
A mouse?
no.
As the person for whom these socks, like these are my needles.
No.
I'm allowed to make fun of myself.
You are a continental knitter.
I am not, but
Oh,
yes, I
okay.
think if you were a continental, it would be easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do my knitting with my right hand.
Yeah. It is awkward.
It's
Can see,
and I use these fingers to kind of lever my needle.
Yep.
So I would find this a little bit cramped.
Yeah.
If you were maybe a left-handed knitter
Mm-hmm.
or a continental knitter, you might find this
A little bit easier.
a little
Yeah.
easier.
I think the
Oops.
main reasons I've heard people enjoy these.
I don't normally knit with my left hand, so.
We're nobody's judging you here.
No.
Absolutely nobody is roasting you.
Oh,
in the
that's
comments
splitting.
right now.
Okay,
Don't worry.
you get it.
Yes.
It's small.
Yeah.
But it's very portable.
Folks like the most common reason I've heard that people enjoy these
Mhm.
is if they get really pronounced ladders
Yes.
from DPNs or from Magic Loop, you won't get it from this because it is kind of like knitting a hat on a 16-inch,
Yeah.
just in a big loop. If you can see ladders in my sock, it's because I knit them on DPNs and moved them over
Yeah.
this evening.
If you're wondering what a ladder is,
Yeah.
it's basically where you can see the history of your knitting,
Yeah.
where your needles were separated. So if you're knitting on double pointed needles, you'll have like 3 or 4 points where your needles are meeting.
Yeah.
And you can get this kind of like stretched out
Mhm.
kind of look where you can see, come a little closer,
Yeah.
you can see these little ladders.
Yeah.
More pronounced.
Yes.
So that's this one.
Yeah. And there's methods to fix that, but like realistically, nobody. If someone's close enough to see my ladders, I can kick them in the face. That's my rule.
And that'll block out, right?
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's on my feet. It's quite literally the furthest it can be from my eyes.
Okay, so this is DPNs, and this was very intimidating to me when I first started because it felt like,
Yeah.
knitting spaghetti on a fork.
Yeah, especially when you cast on.
Yeah. I might demonstrate a cast on double pointeds
Sure.
for another video.
Yeah.
Because it's a little different. But basically, you're instead of a circle, you're kind of creating a little bit of a square, right? And you're knitting in the round. My working yarn is right here.
It's kind of like how they did knitting in the round before circulars were a thing.
Before plastic.
Before plastic.
Yeah. So, do you have a fifth one or?
No. Well,
Okay.
yes. It's
Okay.
buried.
So, let me just knit to the end of this,
Yeah.
and then, are you 2 by 2 here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. I'll rip out whatever. You can just
Oh,
knit if
okay.
you want.
Okay.
We're all good.
So I'll just show you what happens when you get to the end of your row.
Just knitting along.
Oh, I'm not even paying attention.
Oh, just knit. Just
Okay.
knit all the stitches. I will take it back. It's okay.
It's like
It's okay.
knitting when people are watching you.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I realized as I was casting on this evening was like, oh, hey, Emily, you chose like the best color ever to do a demonstration with this like deep
Well-
chocolate brown
But we're just showing the needles.
Yeah.
We're really just
Yeah.
showing the needles.
and like the mechanics of the needle.
Okay, so now what's going to happen?
I don't know, Caitlin. What is gonna happen?
Okay, now there's nothing on this needle. So now this needle moves to the right hand and becomes your working needle.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just kind of shimmy things around. It's always a good idea to just have a quick look, make sure nothing's too close to the edge, because that can be sad.
Yes, very sad.
And then you just
Start
start knitting again.
Yep.
Like that.
I think it is good to have both options under your tool belt. I guess all three. It's good to have all three options under your tool belt. If you are predominantly a DPN knitter, it doesn't hurt to have magic loop, because if you're making sleeves or something, you don't have the right size. And again, you're at the cottage. All of my hypotheticals are you're gone and you don't have access to your full stash.
Yeah, or like it, decreasing for a hat.
Yes.
This kind of thing. This is why I use Magic Loop. I was telling Faustina, I just default to Magic Loop for everything because it's so handy and I don't have to switch to DPNs.
I like making my life hard. All right.
Yeah.
Why don't you come back up here for a second? We'll say goodbye. And I'll turn my flashlight off. I'm on frame. Yeah. Okay. Yep. You're good. You get back over here. Okay. So I don't think we raised any. I was trying to be a good co-host. Yeah, we had no questions in that time. So what? If you have any questions in the week ahead, you can pop them in the comments in this video, or you can send them to us via social media or email. If you're casting on with us, please tag us on like photos on Instagram or Facebook. Show us what you're working. We're really excited. We love being shown what people are making. Happy sock knitting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything else we needed to say?
Make sure to watch the last week of Michelle's
Yes.
Oxbow sew along.
Tune in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
You're all here. Just stick around for 5 minutes. She'll be like, what's happening? What are all these knitters doing?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, she's made so many of those.
The
now.
Oxbow totes?
Yeah, I think it feels like every week she's got a new one. Yeah.
That's like me with socks. And soon to be you too. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week to talk about heels.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye-bye.